we can go live. Good evening. This is the Raleigh Finance Committee meeting, February 27th. It is 7:17. Call the meeting to order. First item is to approve the minutes from February 20th. And I think everyone has a copy of it.
Looks good.
Read it.
I make the motion that we approve them.
Okay.
Second motion.
No comments on it.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, move on. Next item, that's enough. Coordinator of Health Services and Regulatory Compliance, Frank Marziani.
Yep.
To discuss fiscal 19 Health Department budget. Okay, Frank.
Okay, well, I think you have everything in front of you there, right?
Yes.
As far as the wages, as requested to reflect the FY19 non-union schedule, should be pretty straightforward there, I believe. And the expense line was level funded as requested. Not really any real changes from the previous years. No capital requests this year. Just a little more information about the expense line. What you're not seeing there is we have a separate line, a rabies account line that we share with the animal inspector. Any bills that come up through there, we pay through that line. Tobacco control, you're not seeing in there. We participate in the Healthy Communities Tobacco Control Program with 17 other towns in the area, and we get a grant. Well, it goes for so many years, and we all go in together to get a grant. It pays for a person, and they do compliance checks and education and things like that. So, again, you won't see that in there. And mosquito control is funded through our budget, as you know. And then hazardous waste, we handle through our revolving fund, which I'll get to in a second. But that's pretty much it.
Okay, any questions on that before we go to the revolving funds?
My only question, Frank, is does your department get involved with like the opioid situation going on, which is a big issue in this country
Actually,
now?
we're talking to the police chief about that, about not much, honestly, no. It's something, though, that we're talking about doing a joint effort in at some point.
Okay.
But
It's a major crisis
it is a
nationwide
huge,
now.
yes, huge problem.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
One of the things we had discussed is, thankfully, I'm not gonna say Raleigh doesn't have a problem. It's not here in Raleigh, it is, in Raleigh it's everywhere. And one of the things we had talked primarily is gonna be the educational component of it, because that's really our best avenue in combating this, is to get them not to start again and to having those discussions, open discussions and honest discussions with parents and with kids, so that's really, along the lines of what we're gonna try to do that.
Are you, Chief, and the other chiefs from Salisbury and Newbury working like with the school department then for education, like the Triton School District? Is that
Nothing
part of
formal in
the?
place. We have something, last year we taught, it's called a LEAD program down at the Pine Grove School for 6th grade kids. Officer McGettrick taught that class. It's not just about drugs, it's about good decision-making, positive influences in your lives, to have those conversations both with your parents, your siblings, your peers. It's really more about positive decision-making. The LEAD program is something that you can actually be taught all the way down to kindergarten up to 12th grade. We've made discussions about that as far as incorporating it, because we don't want it just to leave once they leave the 6th grade here in Pine Grove. So to answer your question, yes, we are, but there's nothing formalized through the district. The only thing that I'm aware of is what we began last year at Pine Grove, and we're going to continue the second half of the year at Pine Grove this year with Officer McGettrick's graduation from the academy.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a question. You
Yep.
said something about mosquito control.
Yes.
Where is that in your budget?
It's not actually in our budget. Maybe you can help.
Separate
It's a
item.
separate item,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a cherry sheet assessment.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the program is managed through the health department, so
Yeah.
there's an enormous amount of work that the health department staff has to do
Yeah.
between people that sometimes, when they make the decision to do the spraying, when it's, the
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we-
Eastern equine virus,
yeah.
triple E or whatever.
We do testing throughout the town through the season. We do a lot of larviciding. I think our assessment was around 61,000 this
Yes,
year.
and it's probably gonna go up a little.
Probably go up a little bit, yeah. And a majority of that money is used for helicopter spraying over the marsh, larviciding.
Yep.
But they treat the catch basins, again, monitoring over the town. It adds up. It gets costly.
Yeah, I was getting a little concerned about that, because I know when you look at the budget itself, for years, not so much this past year, a lot of it's just administrative costs.
Yeah.
There's very little that actually goes into the spraying portion.
Spraying, yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
That's why
we-
sometimes I wonder if it's worth it, but I think for Riley it
Yeah.
is because we have the salt
The
marshes.
salt
and
marsh,
things
that's the
like
big
that.
key.
Oh, it's well worth
Yeah.
it. Speaking
Yeah.
for someone that lives right near the marsh, it's well
Yeah.
worth it. And the greenhead boxes,
Yeah.
that has made such a difference. I mean, I never used to be able to go out in my yard in
Mhm.
greenhead season.
Yeah.
And this past year, I hardly saw a greenhead.
Yeah.
But they
It
used
makes
to
a
do a
big
little bit
difference.
more, ditch digging and things of that
Yes.
nature, and they stopped doing that when a lot of the diseases came in from
Mhm.
mosquitoes. But now I know last year they did some work around town, so.
Yeah, that's the focus has changed from nuisance control to virus control now, and now when we do testing, we really very seldom do town-wide spraying, we do targeted spraying. So we have traps set around town, and if we find an area where we're finding virus, we target that area. But again, a bulk of it is the helicopter spraying. That's the most expensive piece of it. But also the surveillance. Without being in the program, we wouldn't have a mechanism to do the surveillance, so we really wouldn't know what was going on in Raleigh. So we need that, to keep an eye on what's going on. And we work with the other towns. A lot of times they'll set traps on the edge of town, so it'll benefit both towns, like the next town over. And then again, they shift accordingly, because I think there's 32 towns in the district, I believe, and there's only 2 or 3 in this area that aren't involved in the program, so they all sort of work together. And one town's action will benefit another town.
Okay, just a couple of other things I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting, that we're being audio and video recorded, so if you want to retract anything, we can erase it, hopefully.
18 minutes of missing tape. Huh?
Right. And also, for this year through January, your budget items are all,
Look pretty good.
below their projected spending levels. So, do you see any adverse effects, anything?
For the
that
rest
might
of the
affect-
year, or?
For the rest of this year?
I don't think so. I think we're right on track.
Okay.
Pending any unforeseen things that might happen, but I think we're on track.
Okay. You have 2 revolving funds.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Septic
Yep.
inspections and septic betterments.
Yes.
Can you put
I'll
tell
start
us
with
what
the.
those are?
Sure, I'll start with our septic revolving fund. Well, the purpose, it was set up quite a while ago, but the purpose was to finance special waste disposal and technical expertise that we may not have and may need to get some guidance on. What goes into the fund is half of all the construction permits for a septic system, including perk testing, plan review, installation permits, and certificate of compliances. Half of that money, those fees, go into this fund, and the other half goes into the general fund. So the money that's in there is sort of dictated by what's going on out in the field. If it's a heavy building season, that account will have a little extra money, and if it's slow, then of course it'll go down. We do have a limit of $20,000 to spend in a fiscal year in that account. So right now our balance is right around $28,000 currently, and it was a busy year, and that's why it's that high. Normally it's not that high. I've seen it as low as $3,000-4,000 and up to about this range. So again, it fluctuates depending on what's going on. So far this year, we spent $9,553. Have about 10,000 or so left for this year. The bulk of that money was our household hazardous waste day, which is what takes up most of it every year. It's getting very costly to do that. That's the bulk of it. And the other big piece is electronics recycling. Again, getting very expensive. So, and then we have our other programs. I think we have a memo there kind of detailing some of the things that we do. We do our white goods light metal collection day where we collect items that contain Freon. Again, if we need to pay that, that's where the money would come from there. We started that in 2007. We started the hazardous waste day in 2005. We were one of the few towns that didn't offer it, so we had talked to DEP and they gave us some guidance on how to do it. And then we needed to figure out a way to pay for it, and this is where we turned to this fund to do it. And then it also pays for electronics, car batteries, tires, and propane tanks that we take at the hazardous waste day as well for that disposal. We have a SHARPS program in place. We started in 2006 when the state banned medical shops from going into the trash. We started the program for Raleigh residents. Disposal all comes out of that fund as well. We have a mercury collection program also. We started in 2008, again, when the state banned putting mercury in the trash. We collect thermostats, switches, thermometers, bulbs to a certain extent. We try to, if you have a lot of bulbs, we try to get people to bring them to the hazardous waste day, but if you have like button cell batteries, things like that, we can take them in our office and just hold them so they don't get damaged or lost. So it funds all that. This is really the only mechanism we have to pay for this stuff, because or else we'd have to create another line in the budget. Yeah.
Been level funded on the recycling.
Yeah.
Since I started working here, and so this has been able, having this revolving fund has been able to offer this
Yeah.
service, thankfully, because the town budget hasn't been able to.
Right.
As
We-
someone that uses the recycling days.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about maybe making a separate, item in the budget, but then we're thinking, well, this is sort of working,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And in a sort of way, everyone in town has a septic system, so eventually you're going to contribute to this fund, and this is sort of a way our board always thought to give back, because we only charge for certain things. It's mainly TVs and monitors are very costly to get rid of, but we absorb pretty much most of the cost of the hazardous waste itself, as long as you're a Raleigh resident and you don't bring an exorbitant amount. If you bring in a whole truckload, we may say, all right, we have to charge you a little bit to absorb some of this. So it's a lot of towns don't do that. They either charge like a copay, or they charge you for the full amount to get rid of it. So it's depends how you
It's
look at it.
working, though.
It's working, yeah. And we also work with all the town departments that may have computers and things that are obsolete. We bring to our event. And same with some hazardous material. I think we only charged, the water department one time because they had a real huge amount of material they need to get rid of. So we had a small bill for that, but we take all that in at no charge to the other departments to help absorb, some of their costs. And we also work with the IT department twice a year. We talk to them, anything you need to get rid of or recycle, we get the data removed and we take care of it. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much how it works.
Okay.
We don't use a lot of the technical expertise. On occasion, something will arise, some new technology with septic systems that we may not be familiar with, may ask for assistance, but very rarely. And we very rarely spend the 20,000. Usually it's 10 to 12. But we base that number on a worst case scenario, saying, all right, if worst case hazardous waste day, a worst case, Freon collection, and say it shouldn't exceed that amount ever. But we like to have that cushion just in case.
Right.
But sometimes we don't even have that much in there. Again, it fluctuates. So, like I said, right now we're in decent shape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other
Questions on that?
or so?
Could you talk about the loan?
Yep, sure.
The septic loan revolving?
Yep. Sure. Yep, that's, well, our loan program is, as you know, for Raleigh residents who have a failed system. It's for repairs only. You can't use this to expand your system or for new construction. This is for someone that's in an existing home, has a failed system, and is going to place in kind. In other words, if you have a 3-bedroom home, you can, this will fund a 3-bedroom system, not a 4-bedroom or so on. And it's not for commercial properties either. It's been in place over 20 years now. It's hard to believe. We've processed 92 loans, believe it or not, over the years. Right now, we have 48 active ones that are still outstanding, and we have 44 that were paid in full. In total, we borrowed $1,250,000, and I can give you a little more detail on that. Let's see. It was actually done in two different times. Back in 2000, 2001, now again, we borrowed this money with no interest, so we just have to pay back the principal, which is a really, really good deal. The first borrowing was back in, again, 2000, 2001. We borrowed $500,000. And we drew it down in 3 increments, $75,000, $125,000 in 2005, and then 2009, we drew down the last $300,000. And then in 2010, we borrowed another $750,000, which again, when I say draw it down, it means we didn't have it in the bank here. It was at the state. We drew it down as we needed it. Again, in 2010, let's see here. Well, 2010, 2012, 2013, we drew down $350,000, $200,000, and then $200,000. So the reason we did the $750,000, we were actually going to do $500,000, just make it a million even, but there was rumors, and I think it did happen, that the state was going to start charging an interest rate when you borrow this money. So we thought at the time, rather than going for the 5, we'd go for the 750 to give a little extra, and then manage it from there. So we didn't have to go back and borrow for more and pay interest back. So, as you know, we pay the state back every year. This year, as in past year, it's going to be $63,439 for each borrowing. And believe it or not, in 2020, we're going to be done paying the first $75,000, which will save us $3,900. So, again, the last payment will be in 2034. Looks like. So now, I can't get. I don't know the specifics about how the accounting is done, but in a nutshell, the accountant will give us a report every year on, well, actually every quarter, I'm sorry, on what's actually available to lend out. This $1 million that you see in there now is the entire picture, so to speak. I don't know how to explain it, but the accountant will give me a breakdown of the money that's loaned out and the money that's actually available to give out to loans. Right now, money available is around $400,000 to lend out, which when you're looking at $25,000 to $30,000 a system, you can get chewed up pretty quickly. So we have to keep in mind.
What's the difference between the money available and the other balance that you said?
Yeah, it's.
400,000 was for people for the septic, so where's the difference is, what's that for?
600,000, yeah. That's money that's been loaned out that,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how the accountant does it, but she has to keep track of how much we have to pay the state back and the principal back. And I just don't, I'd have to have her explain the formula, how she calculates it. But, the people are paying back, of course, every time they get their tax bill, but also some people sell their homes and their lump sum comes back into the program, and then we'll do another loan to lend them out. So it's money coming in and out continuously. And like I said, we're now at the point where we're just managing what we have. And fortunately, we have enough money to lend people. We don't have to really pick and choose. We have enough available to.
Now, it sounds like the 600,000 is what's already on the books that's been
Right.
committed,
exactly.
okay, versus the 400,000, which is not
Available
committed.
to lend out. Yeah. If we get to a point where, we're getting, that number's getting lower and lower, you might say, all right, hold on. Don't lend any more money out until we figure out how much is coming in.
Right.
Fortunately, no one's defaulted on the loans. Everyone's paid. So it's been a very successful program. We've had people in really tough situations that had big problems and nowhere to turn, and fortunately we were able to help. So it's been working out well.
If there's 600 committed, so how much, like if you say the average septic system's like $20,000 or something?
Yeah, it ranges anywhere. We've seen them as low as 15 to all the way up to 40, 45,000, depending on what
But if you say it's already committed 600, so if you divide, let's say 20,000 into 600,000, how much is that? That would be how many homes?
30.
30? Well, I guess that's,
Yeah,
sounds reasonable.
Not
well, I think,
very
she-
many for
I
yeah,
guess that sounds reasonable.
I-
6,500 residents or so.
yeah. I believe she looks at the 48 existing loans.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's 1,900 homes, isn't there in Malley?
I think this-
1,900.
Yeah, but every time you loan out, you know, for a septic system, that would jack up the 600,000 until it's paid back.
Right.
So that's 30 homes or whatever, but that's 30 homes until it's gone, not 30 homes per year,
Mhm.
right?
Right. Yeah, we averaged, honestly, this past year was very busy. We did about, I think, 11 or 12 loans in 1 year, which is a lot.
So that's a lot, is about 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So you got about 3 years' worth of surplus there.
Right.
So, did you say eventually the money's gonna run out and then it's
Uh,
not gonna be replenished?
No, actually, if things go well, we can sort of manage what we have and not need to borrow anymore. Because once we pay back the principal, the money stays in there, we can continue to lend it out. We just didn't want to get hit with the percentage charge for borrowing the money, so that's why we borrowed it at the time, so we can just pay back the principal.
And how many years is the loan for?
20 years.
20-year loan?
Yep, and there's no penalty for paying off early. We have a document that we record at the registry every time we process a loan that will flag them at the closing that this money is owed to the town. The treasurer will determine the actual amount. We collect the money. We do another recording to remove the betterment. And, which actually is a good segue into, we have actually another fund with this. It's called our registry fee revolving fund, where we collect $75 at the time of the processing the loan, deposit it into this account. I go to record it at the registry. We get the bill. We pay the 75. So it's 75 in and out. It's usually a zero balance, but technically it's a. But I believe every department has a registry account that they use, and ours is separate, so it doesn't get mixed in with the other accounts. You know, we do quarterly reporting to the state and annual reporting. Quarterly reports show where the money went, who you lent it out to, what was it for, you know, to an installer for, you know, $10,000 or an engineer for $2,000. So we report that, and then the annual report shows any money coming in, any homes that were paid off, I should say loans that were paid off, and any extra money that was collected. Because you can pay extra towards the principals and not be penalized. Just like any other mortgage loan.
Do you charge the homeowner interest? or
2%.
2%?
Yeah. And again, that money all goes back into the pot to lend out to somebody else to keep the program going.
Is that for low income then, or is it?
No, actually, we didn't set any restrictions. We could set it on environmentally based or income, but fortunately, we do have the money available. So as long as you qualify, it has to be in failure. We need proof that it's in failure, and you're not expanding the system, and it's not commercial. We can help.
Okay.
How many years does a homeowner have to pay it back?
20 years. 20
Okay.
years, yeah.
And how much did you say the loan was that you borrowed from the state that you have to pay? How much is the principal on that one?
63 for.
How much?
63 for, even for this year?
For this year,
63,
yeah,
439.
yeah.
We had an article in
Yeah,
last
we-
year's warrant
Yeah.
you looked at.
Yeah, every year we do the same.
It's that article,
Yeah.
MWAP, Mass Water Pollution Mitigation Trust. It's on there every year with a different amount.
Yeah, it actually will be the same till 2020 when we paid off, at that point, we would paid off the first $75,000 that we drew down, which will drop at $3,900. But basically, it's the same thing every
It's the
year.
same, okay.
Yeah.
So what was the amount again? 60?
63,
439.
63, 439.
439, yep. So, we, again, we have to make sure we have that money in the program to pay the state back.
Yeah.
And we transfer it from the program to the,
Yep, it's
To the budget.
transfer appropriate
Yep.
for sum of 6349 from the Mass Water Pollution Abatement Trust Septic Betterment Loan Program to pay the debt service on the town's loan. So that's an article that Frank has on here every year.
yeah, every year it's there, yeah.
So it's not that much money. If you're saying, if the balance is like over $1 million, that's,
No.
Yeah, I think that was very informative.
Okay, yeah, no,
A lot of people don't know too much about it. And
Yeah, no, it's, there was a time where we were charging actually 5%. The state allows you to charge either 2 or 5%. It was at 5% for a while, and no one was using it, so our board decided to drop it down to 2, and ever since we dropped it down to 2, a lot of people started using it, which has been good. Because we're not in this to make money, we're here to fix the failed systems and also to keep the program going. Because again, that 2% goes back into the fund. And there's no administration cost. We work with the treasurer, the accountant, and the assessor. Work very well together. No one could. There is admin money we could use to pay people to run the program, but we all just do it as part of the job. And actually, without their support, we couldn't do this. I hear a lot of towns that have the program, they don't get the support from the treasurer and the assessor. So we're very fortunate here that we have that support and everyone works together, which is nice.
Okay. Anything else?
Make a motion that we approve its budget.
Okay, Sharon? Paul? Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Frank?
Hope that helped.
And moving along, next appointment is Police Chief Scott Dumas.
Good evening. So what I'd like to do is just make it easier for the board of selectmen and the finance committee is most of all increases or decreases, unfortunately, decreases in the budget this year's only increases is in my summary memo. So all the changes and variations are outlined in that 2-page memo. The one thing I do want to correct off the bat, because Larry's always good at making my corrections. The attached is a copy of the proposed FY19 Police Department budget, and it was FY18 is the next line down there. There's also one other correction on the summary sheet. So our total budget in the police department is going up $153,390. It says $131,480, and that's because we made a change last night where we added 27.
153, excuse me,
153,390.
390, okay.
That change was made because the $27,390 was added into the budget last night after discussions from with the Board of Selectmen in order to add a new sergeant position. Now, I know Larry's getting his pen out and saying those two numbers, if I add that 27,390 to the 131,480, it doesn't equal 153,390. That's because the OIC pay, which was part of the original memo, and I apologize, it was $9,000 and change.
96.
It actually was reduced to $4,160. The OIC is the amount of money that's paid to an officer who's not a supervisor that would be in charge of a shift. That $4,160 that was figured, they get paid $20 a shift. There's 4 extra shifts per week, multiplied times 52 weeks, and it comes up to $4,160. That's exact, which is probably going to be underfunded in that aspect of it. But I don't want to make speculations because people are going to take days off. Sergeants would take days off, and the sergeant will not necessarily be paid with a sergeant; will be paid with an officer in charge. So, but I want to work with real numbers there, and
Right.
we'll make it work. So. The biggest increases was due to the mass cops. We had been without a contract since FY16. At the end of FY16, their contract ended, and they've been without a contract. They just settled the contract, which is why the majority of the increases for the police department are due to the wage increases. And that 153,390 is also compared to FY16 numbers. So that's compared to the budget that we funded last year, which didn't have any of those compounded pay increases over the course of the year. So That number indicates close to a 9.5% increase from last year's numbers, but that's not the increase based upon fiscal years, because there's a separate warrant article that will be attached, which will deal with the retro pay for past contract years, if that makes sense to you. Okay. The rest of the increases are on the expense line, which is, if you look on the second page, which is on page 6 of the police department memo, it outlines the increased costs that were put into the budget. These are the majority of these line items that I'm going to talk about are items that we already have in our budget. IMC is our records management system. Each year that goes up a dollar figure. There's several modules that we incorporated to our records management system. It's broken down. There's, like I said, there's like 15 or 16 different components that they charge you a fee for this, fee for that, fee for that. And each year they go up about 3% per line, which totals about $650 this year. And it's an incremental cost that comes up every year. But it's a necessary increase into, for our records management system, which we've had since 1994. The $250 increase is accreditation, an accreditation fee. The Massachusetts Association of Police Accredited Agencies Committee, which outlines which we're a member of due to the fact that we're accreditation. Their fees went up this year, first time in 13 years, $250. NEMLEC is the same way. NEMLEC is Northeast Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. We've been a member with that, I think, for over 12 years or maybe even longer. But that is also a dues increase that went up this year in order for those services. They'll provide, if we have any major incidences in town, a mobile command unit, if we, God forbid, needed a SWAT team or anything like that, or even if we needed anything for a parade, if we needed motor units or bicycle units, we have some big event in town, I could utilize this resources to come in here. It's a force multiplier without having to employ the offices for those big ticket items. There are 34 communities that belong to that, and we're one of them in Middlesex and Essex County. PMAM, this is something that this is actually new to the budget this year, $638 cost. PMAM is for the accreditation. As I told you, we're an accredited agency, have been for years, and the software that manages our policies and procedures. We got a trial fee for 6 months during this current year, and it has worked wonders. There's a lot of accredited agencies that utilize it. It makes the whole accreditation process, our ability to keep our filing system, provide proofs, for the accreditation process, which comes up every 3 years, and it's actually coming up this year. We're up for accreditation again in June. It just makes the management of the whole system much more easier. And it also, there's additional things that it allows us to do as far as employee tracking, certifications, training, and emergency contacts and whatnot. So it's kind of a one-stop shop, so it worked out pretty good. So that was an addition that we added into this year's budget. The Live Scan, $2,157. The Live Scan is our fingerprinting machine that we got with a grant 3 years ago. Up until this point, the whole machine was paid for through the grant, and the maintenance fees for the machine was paid through the grant. Wasn't realized it actually came up this year. This $2,157 has been absorbed in our budget. We don't know, where we're going to look at. Right now, it's been paid out of the expense lines. If we need to, we'll go into the drug forfeiture account, at the end of the year. But right now, we think we're going to be okay. We'll see how it goes, but that is something that we're going to have to maintain that equipment moving forward, and I think that was known at the time that the grant was signed, that these maintenance fees were going to come up at some point. So this will be a recurring cost. Next, it'll need to be included moving forward in our budget. So, and The last one on the expense I want to talk about was this is also new. This is $2,388, and it's to archive our social media accounts. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those postings that not only police departments but municipalities now put out there, because we're a public entity, are a public record. Electronic postings are part of a public record, and we have to have some sort of mechanism in place to archive these in the event that we ever had a public record request for those records. There's been, I attached an article, I think you have copies of the issues and options, right? There's an article I attached in regards to social media laws, and the need, and there's been jurisdictions that have been sued because they didn't have it, those archived records for certain things. Now, those are instances, but it's still something that we have to do as a police department. And talking with Debbie, given the fact that there was other departments that also have Facebook or social media accounts, that it might be something worthwhile to incorporate the whole town in as opposed to just the police department, but that's up for her. So that was added into the expense line, and that is most other things is either contractual, contractual. So if anybody had any questions in regards to the budget.
I have a couple, but
I did
Sure.
too.
iPhone.
Oh, it's Chief, I had calculated at home on your lines 51 and 53. The line 51, that was an increase of 6.3%. And line 51 was up 13.2%, and then the subtotal with salaries and wages was up 12.6%. Now, if I understood your explanation, you said that about 9% was due to, like, with the new contract or making up from fiscal year 16. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes. Which lines?
Again, 51, line 51, shows an increase of 6.3%.
Yeah.
Line 53 shows an increase of 13.2%.
Mhm.
And then overall, for the subtotal salaries and wages, that comes to 12.6% increase over the previous year. And so when I see other budgets that are going up 2.5% typically, I thought that was very high. But then you were explaining a little while ago that there was some of that was like with the contract. And how much did that make up with the new contract? Did they get about 9% to make up
Roughly.
since 16?
Roughly. So just in wages alone was 6.75%. So it was 1% COLA, 1 1/4 step. 1% COLA, 1 1/4 step. 1% COLA, 1 1/4 step, which is FY19
Okay.
wages alone. So that was 6 3/4. And
Okay.
then they had other things as far as educational incentives, which was a big increase for them. They tried to bring the educational incentive for the officers in line with area departments, what area departments again, and we spent a long time on this as far as negotiations. We did comparables through other towns that not only had a number of officers, but also the number of residents and the number of demands on the town. So it was a pretty accurate comparison to that. So educational incentive was another increase for officers. And the other big money item, I think, was the differential increase. They went from 6% differential in FY16 to 6 1/4 to 6 1/2 for a second shift. If you work a second shift hour, you get 6.5% over your hourly wage. If you work on a midnight shift, you went from 8 to 8 1/4 to 8 1/2. On a midnight shift. There's no differential on a day shift, obviously, but although there are some departments that pay it, believe it or not.
Oh, never heard of it.
So that's where those are the compounded money. So it wasn't exactly. It came up to those numbers. That's what those were the big numbers where they were. I can tell you definitively, 6 3/4 was for wages, and everything else made up the difference.
Okay.
And the town has budgeted under a different line item for the 2 years prior, right?
We have a collective bargaining reserve balance, so the
Yeah.
chief is gonna see if we have enough in it to cover. If not, then at the
Another
special
article.
town meeting,
Yeah.
I'll have to find a way to fund the balance of that.
I had a couple questions. Paul, you done?
Yes, for now.
Yeah. First, I just wanted to thank the chief for doing a great job on the budget. I mean, it's a big budget. There's a lot of backup here, which is helpful to all of us when we look through it. Sometimes departments come in and say, oh, I think it's this, I think it's that, but you've done a lot of homework here. Makes it easier for us to look at that, and I appreciate that. So I just want to say that first. My couple questions were on page... I just had, one of the questions was, it's probably contractual on page 9, and I don't know if there's a 7, I just figured page 9 on uniform and dry cleaning. Numbers, I see different numbers for,
They went up, yeah, that was the other
I
thing.
mean, is there a difference between uniforms? Because I see they go from 500 to 700 to 1,200, I mean, is that,
Yes, so,
is it the sergeant get a cleaner outfit? or-
no.
Yeah.
Full-timers get 1,200,
Reserves.
part-timers get 500.
Same.
Reserve.
Is there a 700 in there?
Yeah, reserve.
Reserve.
Have a different amount.
But I mean, it's for cleaning clothes, right? I mean, I
Yes.
just didn't know whether they had more uniforms or, from
Yeah, so,
500 to
and in
1,200.
that particular, right, so you get reserve officers that have the 500, full-timers get 1,200. That one $700 officer, he actually falls into 2 unions, because he works, he's a reserve officer, so he falls into that. Gets a uniform stipend for that, for his uniform, but he's also a regular part-time dispatcher, so he gets some for that too. So that's why his is on it.
I guess I'm still wondering why, you have 5 or 6 uniforms. Wouldn't it be just the same amount for everybody?
Full-timers get more uniforms to pay for. It's not just for the purchase of uniforms, it's also for the cleaning of the uniform. So, yeah, full-timers are allotted because, the assumption is you're gonna have more uniforms, you're gonna work more shifts, they're more dirty, as far as.
Is that contractual anyway?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
On page 7, which is your expense line item, I was just wondering if there was any possibility of putting that as level funded, because all the other departments sort of went level funded, and you have a lot of different increases in the wages, which is fine, but looking at the expense line item, I just thought you don't have the trailer anymore, so I didn't know whether the utility charges, which you had 22,000 for, could be reduced to some amount to balance out that increase that you're proposing for your expense line item.
The
I think
utility
it went up
charges,
$6,000, and I was just wondering if there was some way you could
which
reduce that to say.
line are you looking at specifically, Tom? I'm
It's
sorry.
this, it says page 7, it's this sheet here,
Okay.
and the expenses on it.
Right.
It's about I think it's about the 4th sheet in,
Okay,
5th sheet in.
yeah.
So, I mean, you have utilities, but I didn't know, now without the trailer and everything, I didn't know whether you could, skimp a little bit of money there.
Well,
And then the cruises, you have a pretty good amount of money for cruiser maintenance, and you got the newer cruises now. I didn't know whether you could skimp a little bit there to just
believe it or
conform
not,
with the rest of the
believe it or
departments.
not, the cruiser maintenance, that's one of the line items where, right now, we're not doing well in that line, despite the fact that the new cruisers.
Okay.
We've been going through a lot of breaks, with the cruisers in particular. So I'm not, I don't think I can afford to, it looks like a big number, but it's really an underfunded line right now. 415.5, we're actually overspent in that line. As far as utilities, yes, I'd be hesitant to do that because halfway through the year, we're gonna be coming online with the new PD.
When is that supposed to be coming online?
January of 19. will there be a savings? Probably be a savings in the utility lines, because those trailers, as you know, or maybe you don't know, they were heated
Yeah,
and all electric, which
Yeah.
was expensive.
Yeah.
And that was a big bill that we don't have to pay. And also the 24,000 was removed from the modular buildings, reduction on the front page, summary page, that's removed from the trailers itself. So I don't know how to calculate that, and I'll leave it up to your best judgment. Alls I know is that we're gonna be coming online to a bigger building than we had. It'll be more efficient than those trailers, I'll guarantee it. You could have some room there, but I wouldn't know where to begin to spec, it would be a guess.
Yeah, that's fine. I just, I'm thinking ahead, if we have to revisit these budgets and
Oh,
do
sure.
some cutting, you're gonna have to do some cutting. I mean, where would you, do some possible cutting? And I'm thinking in expenses, you'd have to look at each of these line items and see what you actually spent on each one. I know you can override, if you're short on, like you said, police cruisers, you can take it out of something else. Bottom line is, it's 143,900. It's about it's 4.56 above last year's, and we're just trying to keep. Well, I think that was the directive, was to keep the expense line items level funded.
Right.
And try to just absorb whatever you have to absorb.
You're right. And some of those areas, if you look at how I have that break it down in FY19, when I first took over putting this budget together, the expenses were just clumped expenses. There was nothing really broken down, internally, to see what we. So I've been doing, the best I can over the past year and a half, 2 years, to see where we're spending the money and trying to, break it out as evenly as possible.
Yep.
And this is about what we're spending, with those lines. If I was to guess any place, if we had to trim it, and it would only be minimal, it would be in gasoline, but that's only because we've been fairly fortunate lately, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, gasoline prices, they fluctuate so
fluctuate,
much.
right.
I have no idea what it's going to be like in a year from now.
right, and we're about to go out. We were just talking the other day. We're about to go out to bid again, for it. And what we've been told is that we've been undercharged, from our recent contract or our current contract that's in place based upon the person that's supplying it. So, and they hadn't gone out to bid since 2010, I guess. So we're going back out to bid on that aspect of it. So I guarantee it's going to fluctuate because she feels as though she's paying under what they determined to be the rack price.
Are you in a consortium with that? Are you in a consortium for the fuel,
No.
or you do it yourself?
We go ourselves out to bid. I mean, right now, yeah, it's the police department's on their own. We're about the only one that's required, I think, to go out to bid because of the amount of money we spend on gasoline. But again, to answer your question, and I appreciate your point, and that's why I tried to point out as far as the expenses. Some of those are uncontrolled. I just can't. I mean, like our records management system, that bill goes up every year, and you got to pay the bill. There's no way to say, okay, well, this module that we've been using, we're not going to use this module anymore because I don't have $650, more in my account. But there are a couple in there, and one of them was the grant, which we knew was coming up. That was a big one, $2,147 that for the live scan. I mean, that's something that needs the maintenance and software. It needs to be maintained. The machine needs to be maintained for that aspect of it. We knew that was coming up. It should have been built into the budget last year. It was missed that when the grant ended. The social media, that's something we don't have to do, and as I stated in here, they were put in here because I think it's important that you do social media, especially because of some of the liability that you will leave yourself open to as a public entity. But we don't have to, and it easily can be taken out, and that's $2388. That's not anything that's in our budget. But I presented it that way, but it can easily be removed. As far as the other thing, accreditation, again, these are all things that we're a part of. Uncontrolled costs that went up, first time in 13 years, $250 it went up.
I have a question on that, on the accreditation. What's the difference between being accredited and certified? 'Cause I noticed
It's
in
different
your-
levels,
your
less
paperwork-
policies that you have to comply with as a, so, I don't know the exact numbers, but just to say if, and these numbers are wrong. I'm certified, I gotta comply with 200 policies. I'm accredited, I gotta comply with 250 policies, how they outline. Again, those numbers are wrong, just using them as an example, but that's the difference between one over the other.
Yep. Are we working towards certification, or, because I noticed in your...
Certification is lower level than accreditation. We're beyond certified.
Oh, you are beyond
Yeah, we were the first agency in the state to be
accredited.
certified.
Okay.
And we've now been accredited. We're the third agency in the state to be accredited. And we're coming up on our 6th accreditation.
One other question. In this year's budget, I noticed that we paid for the modular all the way for the whole year. Did we need to do that, or?
Yeah. Well, what it was, when we looked at it last year, when we built the budget last year, we talked about this too. We knew the PD was coming up, and we didn't know exactly when we were gonna try to move out of the modular. And a lot of the costs that were, so we paid the rent for 6 months and then part of the 7th, because we were in there till, we paid it through 5 months, I think.
Yeah, it was like,
November.
and then December.
And then
you-
part
you
of
moved.
December, and then we moved out.
Well,
But the money, there was money associated with moving costs that we had to, it was $11,000 and change to move those off-site, which was part of the original agreement way back when. So even though we got out of the buildings, we still had to pay the moving company, it was $11,000 plus to remove those. And then we had to pay Wakefield Movers about $4,500 to move the furniture that we had into the annex right now.
So that whole 24 wasn't just for the rental of the
Right.
bill, it was to move it and do this other
Yeah.
stuff, so it came
Right.
out of that line?
We knew that was,
Okay,
we knew that
that's-
was
We
coming.
want to keep it off the project cost.
Oh, yeah,
because
no, I
that's
just
an
didn't,
override.
I just thought that we
Yeah.
were renting the building that isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
But if it's
no.
all the other costs associated with it, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Decommissioning
Okay.
and everything is so,
Yeah.
and then we also looked at maybe having temporary quarters and renting that out. Once again, that would be tied to the project cost, but we're trying to keep the police and fire station costs down, the project. So this way, the chief actually decided to move everybody that was in that big trailer
Into the Pizza Hut.
into the little building.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be in there pretty tight quarters till we can get an occupancy permit and, we're at substantial completion on the police addition. So we're trying to get that done, but we were able to save a lot by using that line and not dipping into
Yeah.
the project. And, but the decommissioning was part of the contract, as the
Yeah,
chief
no, that
said.
makes sense. On page, I think it's 10 or 11, you have vacation days for the impersonal days, personal days. Has that been built into the, have you built that in coverage for these officers? Has that been built into the
So that is,
budget?
again, not exact, but if you look at,
I might have missed that. I probably
if you
did.
look at the wage breakdown, the wage summary breakdown, where it says holidays, sick time, vacation time,
Yep, longevity,
on this page here.
page 10. Oh, that.
On this page here, if you look at overtime, it says holiday buyout, holidays, vacation, sick leave, military,
Yep.
training. So that is, again, like I said, this used to be into one big lump of money. I broke it down, so when someone's off on training, what are we spending to replace them? What are we doing for vacation, holidays, and sick time? So that it's figured into there, but it's not exact. This isn't anything that generally has been increased. So it's broken down in there as best we can. And it's not, I'll be honest with you, it's not, if you added up the overtime with the amount of holidays and vacation days that all the employees have, it doesn't cover it. The way we're able to do it is by robbing Peter to pay Paul. A lot of times, my secretary will work a desk as opposed to replacing a civilian, replacing a dispatcher. She'll come off her duties and she'll work a desk. It doesn't cost me anything. My captain will work a patrol shift, or I'll work a patrol shift, and that way it doesn't cost me overtime. Obviously, those aren't things we can do all the time because of our responsibilities, but those are some of the things we do to mitigate those costs, which it's pretty tightly funded.
And one of my last questions is, do you foresee any shortfalls in your budget for FY18? Because when looking at the January report, it looks like your expenses are a little heavier than, a 6 or 7 month period.
Right.
In other words, it should be 44%, and if you have like 34% left.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So there's a couple of things that are kind of misnomer in there, like the ammunition line and stuff like that. There's also some things that 100% spent in there that I won't be spending any more out because they're just paid up front.
Yeah, it's a one-time charge.
But there's a couple expenses that were unforeseen in there, in particular the 2147 that it cost me for live scan. This, 2001, that's a big hit on the expense line. And right now I'm putting it in the expense line to see if I can keep it there, but maybe we're not doing the last paper clips by getting as much paper
Yeah,
or scrimping there.
But you don't, there's nothing in here that's...
There's nothing that scares me right now.
Yeah, okay. Because it looks like your wages are in line.
Right.
I know last year that was an issue,
Right.
but it looks like, right now it's in line maybe because of the openings that you have in the department and stuff, but it'll all balance out.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And it's, in just my opinion on the sergeant item that you had in your budget or proposed and you had before the selectmen, I would just say that, just me as a person would support that, so.
I appreciate it. As I explained to the Board of Selectmen last night, and Larry was here for it, the department is getting younger. And policing is getting more difficult, and there's a lot more responsibilities and liabilities that the police officer has right now. So to have a trained officer, and this will allow me to schedule a trained officer 100% of the time on the midnights and 100% of the time on the 4-12 shift. And then myself and Captain Sedgwick, one of us is generally working Monday through Friday, so then I got weekends and the odd ones to deal with. So it puts us in a much better place. So I appreciate your support on
But
that.
hopefully, we don't have to go back and look at budgets and do some cutting, because that's probably the...
Yeah, and I
we
understand
have
that,
to
and
cut
that was
back.
explained to me last night as well, and I get it, but just to have
But
your
the need
support
is there.
moving
Yeah.
forward is, I appreciate it, and if we don't get it this year, we'll deal with it and come back again next year, so hopefully we'll be able to, work it in though.
So, I just have a question. So I just look at the numbers. You had an increase of 13.24% on line 53 wages and benefits. So like you said something about 6% covers what the cost of living and the contractuals would be 6% for 1 year?
6.7.
6.7. So then the other difference is what? I mean,
All
from,
those, so the educational incentive was one of them, the differential was another, that they had. There was an increase in their uniform stipends.
Yeah, but not, okay, so, but is this, I don't have the budgets in front of me, but is the FY 2018 gonna be over what you appropriated for what was in the budget? You're gonna go over, right? And,
Yeah, that's what we're
yeah.
gonna take care of at the special town
Well, that's
meeting.
what I'm asking, because the numbers
Yeah.
don't make sense to me, that's what I'm asking. if,
Right,
you
no,
know,
there's
it goes
gonna be,
over.
there's gonna be some warrant articles that have been, configured based upon the retro pay, the contract, and the contract. There was some, and Debbie can speak to this, but there was some money that was set aside from year to year, knowing that this retro is kinda hanging out there. So,
I think it's
I'll
like
let her-
$50,000 or something that we have
Yeah,
budgeted.
so we have, and we were using that article for all three, and the other two contracts got settled.
Yeah.
And we were hoping a year ago at this time that the police union contract would be settled, and there was too much going on, and it didn't happen, and then we didn't have the fall town meeting.
Yeah.
So, that's
Yes,
when
we
the
have
chief
the-
explained, you're looking at really what was FY 16 on that sheet, to what is FY 19, so
It's 3 years.
that's the contract package, and, that's got some other things other than base wage increases.
Yeah, there's one for 55,000 and the other one for $19,729.
Yeah, so we'll have an article after, at least to cost out what he needs, and then we'll have an appropriation to transfer that in for 18. And then an article for the retro for 17.
So you get a retroactive adjustment to whatever the contract is, because then that's,
5,500
yeah.
for balance. That'll be for 2 fiscal years, so it'll be the 17 and what he needs for 18.
I wish they did that in the executive branch. They don't. You don't, when you get a cost, when you get an increase in pay, they don't do any retro, you know?
Well, this
Just
is
get
collective
whatever.
bargaining, yeah.
I'm in
Chap-
collective bargaining too, but I know it's the difference in the towns.
Chief, I have another question. On page 2 on your salary calculations, in fiscal year 17, 7,200 was added for an education incentive. And now, in addition to that, you've requested the $5,000 fiscal year 19 for professional development. Isn't education incentive, isn't that really professional development? Or what would exactly be done under professional development?
That's for the chief, right?
Right, the educational
Right.
incentive, that was added since the
17.
beginning
The-
of my
the-
contract.
Yeah, he has a contract with the Board of Selectmen. The
Yeah.
chief has his own contract with the Board of Selectmen that provides for that.
Right,
The package that's here for the chief.
right.
I don't know if that
That's
explains
for the
it.
chief.
So, yeah, that's what I'm not sure of then. What is the difference between professional development?
It's for the
and
workers,
education?
it's for the other employees, right?
No,
No,
that's
it's
for
not.
trainings.
Professional transfer training.
I'm just saying, if he goes for classes and stuff, I can see that falls under education incentive, so,
No, educational
That's
incentive
professional
is,
development.
educational incentive is for my master's degree.
okay. I didn't see I'm saying
Yeah.
education is a professional development
Right,
itself.
yeah.
And I says, okay, why is there an added thing
Yeah.
for that? Okay.
And those are benefits that the chief has in his employment contract, which are similar to what the police union has, and it's customary for
Okay.
municipal police
I just
departments
needed a
to have that
clarification.
benefit.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions, unfortunately.
You're doing a great job.
You were doing. Let's see.
Hey, you listened last night, you have your answers. I watched from home in my lounge
No, I had my
chair.
questions, but I couldn't get any answers, you know, so. I noticed like for this year, the overtime is like 63,000 or so for all the officers. And I presume, but I just want your confirmation that there's no one officer that is getting like the bulk of the overtime, like, you know, $20,000 or $25,000. That it's, I'm not asking
You know,
who or what, but
right, there's probably 1 or 2 officers that have made that in overtime. Yeah, some officers work more overtime than others, but they don't. It's not like I like you, Larry, so I'm going to give you the overtime. It's done on a rotational aspect of it, and it's based upon a call list, and that's been worked out with the union. You know, some work more overtime than others. Some want to work overtime, some don't.
right, exactly.
Yeah, so, but it's all done on a paging system based upon number of hours that you have worked. So if you get less hours, you'll get called first, and then, you know, Peter.
Peter.
We'll get called second, and then, you know.
Peter, Paul, and Larry.
Right, people learn, not Mary, right? So that's how it works, but there are officers who've made that in overtime, yeah.
Okay, because that's.
It's not uncommon in police departments, you know? I mean.
No,
Bloomfield
but
used to
it was just one of the things. I mean, I put together a chart of, who was getting longevity and educational, to come up with, we'll say, if there was something that really stuck out as far as, one person with the base salary of $50,000 that after everything he's making $250,000 type of a thing. Which is,
Yeah, you just want to make sure there's a number of hours in the day, because I mean, there was a story on the news for a state trooper that was making $600,000, I think it was something like that. And I was just doing mentally in my mind he'd be working 48 hours a day, which there aren't. So I mean, that would be
Right.
a troubling situation. But it's not uncommon for police officers to make sometimes double their salary.
Right.
So. I mean, it's overtime, it's unpredictable, I mean, you don't know what it is, an accident, whatever. I mean, and somebody has to work it, and it's a cost that we have to pay, so.
Right. No, I agree with that. And then the only other thing, and maybe this is because the person is in a couple of unions or whatever, but on the page, well, let's go to page 10. Over there, Officer Tobin is listed
Oh,
on.
yes, look, I have it circled right here. That's a mistake on that page. The $500 should be taken out.
Okay,
So, yes,
Alright.
she was double counted because at one point she was counted in the police union and now she's not. No.
okay, I just didn't know
Yep.
what that was. Okay. No, that was easy.
Good pick on that.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I have to agree that going with a sergeant, it's almost necessary. We can't have, especially at this day and age, not that there's anything against a non-supervisory person being in charge, but with the way things have been going nowadays, I think it's money well spent, and it's a necessity. Things are not going to get easier by any means, and I'm glad that you're taking the proactive approach and putting it in and saying that it's necessary, because we just can't afford not to have that. And also, as a personal experience, I've been very well pleased with the police. I've had contacts with them over the years, and it's always been very professional, and they've always been very helpful, especially in my wife's case, where she had some things that she needed police assistance, and it was very nice.
Oh, I appreciate that. Appreciate the
Appreciate your work and the work that your men have been doing, and keep it up, and thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you very much, Chief.
You want to talk about my revolving accounts? I can leave.
Sure.
Can take a vote on that, or
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
tentatively, till we
Yeah.
balance
Okay.
the budget?
Yeah,
Tentative,
they're all
like the
tentative
selectmen.
really until we balance the
Yeah.
budget.
Well, we can make a motion to recommend
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
budget, and then the selectmen can
Okay.
vote it. I'll
You
make a
do.
motion that we recommend the police chief's budget in the amount of $1,705,088 for FY19.
Okay, have a motion.
I'll second.
Second, Sharon. All those in favor, or any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now,
It's really quite simple. We have two detail accounts, one of them is guys that work a detail in town. Several contracts ago, $5,000 was put into an account by the town on paper, so they could pay money ahead to the officers, if they work the detail in town. that money was reimbursed with the money that gets paid through whether it's National Grid, Verizon, or whomever. So it's really kind of money in, money out. But that $5,000 is a cap. So National Grid can come in here, put a cap, a gas line in, and that money could be spent up quickly. The guys, once they hit that $5,000, the guys don't get paid, you know, so, and they have to wait till that money gets replenished by whoever is paying the entity. It doesn't cost, it's not on the taxpayers at all. There's no money going in or out from the taxpayers. It was just merely put out there several years ago as a front, that $5,000 cap. So that's the in-town details that the officers work. The other account is the police extra, which is called, and it's an outside detail. So it's offices, sometimes we can't always fill the details in town, so we'll have to call other offices here. They'll come to work the town, or our office will go out there. So the officers will get paid out of this account, but not until the money is already in. So this works in reverse. So if a Georgetown officer, if we send an officer over to Georgetown, we'll invoice the town of Georgetown for 4 hours. They'll send us a check. It goes into this account. Then we pay the officer. So there's no money. It's really just an in and out revolving account.
Right. Okay.
So those are the two revolving accounts that I know of.
I remember when they were set up.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So back to your
Any-
question, you know, the 63,000 for the overtime, that's for, you know, town functions and stuff, but, you know, this account here for the details and stuff, you can, you know, depending upon what officer works, it would be in addition to that. So that's why,
Right.
you know, you could, you know, the details are really where the money's made. But again, it's not a cost of the town. Really just, it's a wash, so.
Right, for those details, as
Yeah.
opposed to a regular overtime,
Yeah.
say if we
Right.
don't
Snow
have
and ice or
enough.
something, it's a town-related
Yeah,
function, yeah.
enough
So that's why I say
officers to
it's
cover a
it's more than
shift.
63,000. If you added everything up, it would be X amount of dollars.
Right,
And you could look on that account there, probably you'd see what the total number is,
Mhm.
because you can see the in and out on that sheet.
okay, any other questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Chief.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, let's move along and go to the town hall budget. Right now, remaining in the wages line is $7,431, and in the expenses, $9,832.
This year.
Yeah,
Is that the
that's,
January
I-
report?
yeah, up until the end of
Yeah, I
January.
got this one.
It's 01-193 with a
Yep, let me see.
Any questions, concerns on the town hall budget?
Make a motion to accept,
Okay.
recommend rather.
I'll second.
Sharon. Any further discussion on the town hall budget? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we recommend the town hall budget. Next is the annex.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the annex budget.
Yeah, no change.
Okay, Sharon. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
No change.
Any discussion? Yes. I don't know what we did last year, but I was noticing on the gas, the jump from fiscal 17 to 18 was like 5,000 to 7,000. And then it's, of course, remains constant for this year, but is that, is the annex heated by gas? Okay, so that explains that. And then the only other thing, and I hate to nitpick, but what's the mileage reimbursement? Who-
The janitor goes to Sam's Club to buy the supplies.
Okay,
Oh, he's not gonna go now.
Yeah, so we were able to get it cheaper than ordering through WB Mason or some of the other vendors.
Yeah.
So there's different, so
Jet.
cleaning supplies.
Sam's is gone, so.
They'll go
So-
to BJ's probably now, because
Yeah,
BJ's
or
is a good
something like
building
that.
right on C&C.
Sometimes he has to get the vacuum repaired and he drives to a place in Newburyport, I think it is, I forget the name of it, it's at the Circle. Or he has to go to Tedford Martin where we have an account to pick up
okay.
something that's broken to fix or, something like that, so it's just mileage
Yeah, I
reimbursement.
just couldn't figure
For the
out.
janitor, related to
Yeah.
purchases just for the annex, because
Right.
we keep the town hall and annex on separate budgets. It's one person, though, that works in both buildings.
Okay. Any other discussion on it?
No?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Recycling.
Research, make a motion on that, I don't think you can make a motion.
Yes. On the annex.
Yeah, you
I
did.
did.
Sharon and.
Oh,
second.
Oh, I thought it was the
Seconded.
next one.
No, no, we got the next one.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. We have to look out for each other.
Another senior moment.
Yeah. Okay, on the recycling, wages remaining 2,302 and expenses 4,682. Everything, I don't have any questions.
I don't either, they actually have a 2% decrease.
Recycling.
So I'll make a motion that we
Okay,
approve the recycling department budget.
Okay, it's just, I copied it a couple days ago.
anyone care to second accepting the recycling budget?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Let's see,
I've got the assessors and the inspection department.
yeah, we've got the inspection, but not the,
Assessors is first.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have this.
Assessors.
I have assessors right here if you want to look at it. Got it?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the assessor's budget?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Little change.
I'll second.
second by Sharon. Any discussion on the assessor's budget?
It's pretty straightforward.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Assessor's budget is accepted. Inspection department. Remaining on the salaries is 25,033, wages 8,409, and expenses 2,518, all within line.
Let's see, which,
01,241.
What numbers were you just reading, though?
What was remaining in
Oh, the remaining, okay.
in,
this
Okay,
year?
I was looking for those numbers you were reading,
and I
okay.
was looking at last year, the recap, because we had that budget for the whole year, and last year, it looks like they used everything that they had, so there's no exorbitant amount of money there that they didn't spend.
No.
There was a little bit of money in wages, and it was like $277 in expenses, so,
Mhm.
you know, it looks like level funded would be in line.
Okay. I have a motion to accept the inspection department.
I'll make that motion.
I'll I'll second.
Second by Paul. Any other discussion on the inspection department? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's accepted. Move on to our next meeting date,
Here's next Tuesday.
Tuesday, March 6th.
Any idea what budgets are coming in for next week, Larry?
Still working on that.
Did he?
I'm trying to I'm
Oh, okay.
lining up.
You'll surprise us, huh?
Right.
Yeah, we have some work to do to get those in the
Okay.
queue for you guys.
No problem.
I don't know if any of you noticed, but the emails we got from Debbie were on Sunday, that she
Yeah,
was
11
working.
I
o'clock
did
in the morning.
notice that.
Appreciate
Yes, I
the
did.
extra time she's putting in to get this ready for us.
Trooper.
So it was the
Either that or
front
she
side
hit the
of
delay
right?
send button.
Someday when I retire, I'm gonna go away in the month of March.
You won't like it.
I wanna go away for 6 weeks.
Yeah, you won't know what to do.
Yeah, you won't, because you just,
Yeah.
No,
it took me a couple of years to
What
figure
do
it out.
normal people do in March? Other than St. Patrick's Day.
It's like me in winter, I just, when
Yeah.
it snows out, I look at it, I'm thinking, I gotta be somewhere, but
No,
I
you can
don't.
sit back and have
Yeah,
a
well, I gotta get the
fireplace.
snow blower out, but still, it's a lot better than spending 48 hours at one whack.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Dennis and Sharon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.